And a friend of yours. He is your representative, Representative Johnathan Paton. And I'm going to let him tell you most of the facts, but many of you know that Johnathan Paton not only serves you as your representative up at the Capitol, but he serves all of us in the United States Army Reserves. We're blessed to have a man dedicated to that service. He enlisted in 1999. He's now a first lieutenant in the United States Army. And he deployed back in September of '06 and to Iraq, part of what we're doing in Iraq, and he just got back in February. He's going to come and tell you some things that he's learned and talk to you about some of that. Will you welcome your representative, Johnathan Paton?
Thank you very much. I was asked a while back the same question again and again, and that question is, what's it like going from being a lawmaker to being a soldier? And I can tell you that the power differential from being a state representative to being a first lieutenant is very great. My drill sergeant long ago told me that whatever you do in the Army, remember these two things. Never volunteer for anything, and whatever you do, never call attention to yourself. You never want to be that guy that the drill sergeant knows by name. Well, before I went to Iraq, I was called to serve at a course that the Army puts together called the Basic Officer Leadership Course. It has another name. It's called the Benning School for Boys. It's in Fort Benning, Georgia, and what it really is infantry school. And I went to Fort Benning with the idea in my mind that I would follow my drill sergeant's advice and I would never tell anyone what I did for a day job. So I made it all the way through the course until the last 2 weeks I was on guard duty. And I was standing in the orderly room with my M16, getting ready to go outside to guard the doors, and I got a call on my cell phone. And no, cell phones are not allowed in infantry school, and I was very bad, but I had it on me. I took the phone call, and it was my assistant back in Arizona. And she said, "Mr. Paton, we have one of the bills you wanted drafted, and we'd like to send it to you by fax." And I looked around in the orderly room, and there's this fax machine just sitting there innocently enough. And I thought, that thing that gets us all in trouble, that one statement that goes to your mind, no one will ever know. So I said, "Sure, Phyllis, go ahead and send it over." And right at that moment, I felt there was something wrong, like a disturbance in the force, if you will. And I turned around, and there in the doorway was my TAC officer. And he said, "LT, what are you doing in here?" And I said, "Sir, I'm guarding the orderly room." He said, "Not anymore, you're not. You're going to go clean out the latrines," which is a great occupation for any lawmaker to do. So I went to clean out the latrines, and after a while, I kind of forgot all about the facts until I felt that feeling again, that disturbance in the force. And there he was standing right behind me. And he had a stack of papers in his hands, and he slammed them down in the sink. And there at the letterhead it said, "Arizona State House of Representatives, Johnathan Paton." And he looked at me and he said, "So, I guess your daddy's a real bigwig back in Arizona, huh?" And I said, "Sir, that's not my dad." And he said, "Why would your brother have the same name as you?" I said, "Sir, that's not my brother." And he looked at me and he said, "LT, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Sir, every morning at 4:30, I ask myself that same question." I was sent to Iraq in September, and I did not realize at that time how much traveling I would do. I was sent to a place called Camp Slayer, which is in the middle of Baghdad. It's not in the green zone. We heard about the green zone, and they have good food there. We didn't have that same luxury at Camp Slayer. In fact, they would say that Camp Slayer probably had the worst food in all the theater of operations in Iraq. And I know because I went all over the theater of operations as part of my mission with the C2 of Intelligence, Directorate of Intelligence. I was required to go all over theater, many times escorting classified equipment, and I went to places like Mosul in the north, down to Buka, the prison in the south. I went to cities like Tikrit, Fallujah, Baghdad, and Balad. I saw the whole theater. I was able to serve with Marines, with the Air Force, and with my fellow soldiers. And it was an interesting experience, and one of my jobs, in addition to a lot of the other things I had to do, was to get myself and my fellow soldiers across theater. So I was often the person who got our flights put together. And if you can imagine Iraq, their flight system is a lot like JetBlue on their worst day. If you are a lieutenant, I can guarantee you that you will get bumped by a general. We got bumped by the band, for example. It was a very difficult thing to fly all around on CH-47 Chinook helicopters, UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, or fixed wing. And we would go on hundreds of missions across Iraq. And the one thing I realized at doing that, there was one way that we could get throughout theater safely without any problems. We could arrive on time, we would leave on time, and we would fly in fixed-wing aircraft, which has a less likelihood of getting shot down because it flies at a much higher altitude. There was only one catch. We had to go on prisoner flights. And so I flew quite often with Al-Qaeda detainees. And it was a roomy flight, I have to say that. It was a C-130 aircraft. There's a lot of room in the flight, but you're flying with guys that had just been rolled up after having planted IEDs or trying to kill our coalition forces. And in one of those missions, I was able to talk to one of them who actually spoke English. He was a Jordanian foreign fighter. He'd come into the country, Islamic fundamental or fanatic, I guess, and his job was to place an IED at one of the routes in a part of Iraq. And I asked him a question that I think many of us want to know. Many of us want to know, what is it that their final goal at the end of the day is? I asked him this question, and he said it's very simple. We want to kill as many Americans as we can. We want it to be broadcast on your television sets at night. And we want you to pull your forces and your people out of the Middle East. Now notice he did not say we want you to pull your forces out of Iraq. We want to pull your forces out of the Middle East. And the implication there is we want to destroy Israel as well. So I asked him this follow-up question. What will happen if we do what you want us to do, if we pull out of the Middle East? What is your next step? And he said, where are you from? I told him, I'm from Arizona. He said, then we will go to your country and we will kill Americans in California, in New York, and in Arizona. People like to compare this fight to Vietnam, but I can tell you the Vietnamese did not want to follow us back to our own country. That is the fundamental difference of the war that we are fighting today.